The film opens on a peaceful lake in Arizona. The water is calm under a blazing sun. An old fisherman named Matt is alone in a small boat, sipping beer while lazily casting his line. Suddenly, the calm water begins to rumble beneath him. Without warning, a violent underwater tremor splits the lakebed. Rocks collapse into a newly opened cavern deep below, unleashing something ancient, something deadly. Thousands of prehistoric piranhas swarm upward in the darkness. Matt's boat gets caught in a whirlpool caused by the tremor. His tackle and beer cans fly everywhere. As he tries to escape, the water erupts into chaos. Within seconds, the surface turns red. Matt is dragged under and torn apart by the unseen creatures in a brutal, bloody frenzy. The following morning, in the town of Lake Victoria, the annual spring break celebration is just beginning. Thousands of college students have arrived to party. Music blares, swimsuits, drinking, and wild dancing dominate the scene. We then meet Jake, a local teenager stuck babysitting his younger siblings while the town becomes a sea of chaos. Jake is smart and reserved, very different from the wild crowd filling the streets. He's clearly not thrilled about being left behind while everyone else parties. Jake has a crush on Kelly, a sweet girl from school who's recently returned from college. She invites him to hang out later, and his mood lightens. But his plans are interrupted when a sleazy pornographer named Derek, and wild model Crystal. They're shooting a risque wild girls video on the lake and want Jake to serve as their local guide, in exchange for a front row seat to the fun. Elsewhere, Sheriff Julie, Jake's mother, is called to the site of the morning's seismic tremor. A team of scientists has discovered the underwater fissure and suspects it opened into an ancient sealed ecosystem. Julie is skeptical but agrees to investigate. That evening, a body is found, or what's left of it. Matt's remains are discovered floating near the lake's edge, horribly mutilated, reduced to bones and shredded flesh. The next day, as Julie investigates, more tremors ripple through the water, and we get quick glimpses of the prehistoric piranhas lurking just beneath the surface, fast, aggressive, and multiplying. Later, Julie opens the door to Jake's room and reminds him of his responsibility of babysitting his younger siblings, Laura and Zane. She gives him a firm look and makes him promise not to take them anywhere near the lake, especially after the recent seismic activity and Matt's grisly death. Jake nods and agrees, but his mind is already elsewhere. He stares at his computer. Derek's offer echoes in his head, partying on a luxury yacht, models, filming, music and the works. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and Jake can't resist. The next day, instead of watching his siblings, he pays Laura and Zane to stay inside and keep the house locked while he sneaks out. That afternoon, Jake arrives at the lakeside dock. Music thumps from the sleek yacht tied up near the shore. On board, Derek is in his element, filming two gorgeous models, Danny and Crystal, as they dance in bikinis and tease the camera. The crowd is loud, tipsy, and wild. Jake steps aboard, trying not to look overwhelmed. Suddenly, Kelly appears. She's surprised and suspicious to see him there. She reminds him that he was supposed to be babysitting, but before Jake can fumble out an excuse, Derek spots Kelly from the deck. In his usual charismatic style, Derek invites Kelly on board, praising her look and convincing her to tag along. She hesitates, but joins them. The boat pulls away from the dock, sailing toward a quiet secluded spot on the lake that Jake recommends. Once they arrive, the vibe turns wilder. Derek and Andrew set up the cameras while the models strip off their clothes and jump into the lake, swimming and laughing, completely uninhibited. Derek films every second, directing the scene like a professional in his own chaotic world, while Andrew handles the second camera. Jake watches awkwardly from the sidelines, especially as Derek begins pouring shots of alcohol on one of the models' bodies, licking it off her in front of everyone. He hands the bottle to Kelly and teases her to do the same. To Jake's dismay, Kelly plays along, nervously laughing and licking the alcohol off the girl's skin. It's all for fun, but Jake's discomfort is visible. He looks away, clearly bothered, but says nothing, since he's never had the courage to tell Kelly how he really feels. Suddenly, Jake's phone rings. It's his mother. Julie calls worried, saying she's been trying the home phone all day but no one is answering. Jake nervously steps away from the group and answers his personal phone, lying smoothly that the kids must have been playing outside and missed the calls. Julie sighs and reminds him once again to stay away from the lake. But back at the house, Laura and Zane, now bored and emboldened, sneak out of the house and climb into a small fishing boat tied near the dock. Laughing, they set out into the open water, unaware of the danger beneath them. Elsewhere, Sheriff Julie and Novak sit aboard their boat, eyes fixed on Novak's laptop. A live feed from two professional divers plays on screen. The divers, fully suited and tethered, descend carefully into the dark prehistoric cavern below Lake Victoria, the same one exposed by a recent earthquake. As they venture deeper into the submerged cave system, the camera lights sweep across jagged rock walls and strange, gelatinous pods clinging everywhere. Rows upon rows of piranha eggs, translucent and pulsing, line the underwater nests like something out of a nightmare. It's a nesting ground, and the creatures are beginning to stir. Suddenly, one diver's feed goes static and the other thrashes wildly, screaming into his mask. Julie and Novak frantically try to pull him up, but by the time the diver breaches the surface and is dragged onto the boat, his suit is hollow. Inside lies nothing but a soaked skeleton, stripped clean by the razor-sharp jaws of prehistoric piranhas. Reeling from the horror, Julie and Novak rush to Mr. Goodman, a seismologist and aquatic life expert, hoping he can identify what they're dealing with. Goodman stares at the preserved specimen they bring, a vicious-looking piranha with jagged, almost alien features. He's stunned. This specific piranha species shouldn't even exist. He explains that it vanished over 2 million centuries ago, a predator from the late Paleozoic era, long extinct or so they thought. Goodman speculates that these creatures likely cannibalized each other to survive in isolation, evolving into a deadlier strain. He warns that just a single drop of blood in the water could unleash a full swarm of them, driven purely by instinct. Elsewhere on the lake, Jake's younger siblings Zane and Laura are stranded on a tiny rocky island, their boat having drifted away. They scream for help, but the spring break chaos has everyone too distracted to hear. Hoping to flag someone down, Laura steps into the water to signal a nearby passing boat. But her foot lands on broken glass, slicing her skin and blood begins dripping into the water. Miles below, a piranha catches the scent. The ripple in the ecosystem begins, but before it reaches her, Laura limps back onto the rocks. Back on the yacht, Jake films another adult scene with Derek and his models. One girl is water skiing naked, gliding across the lake as the cameras roll. Jake casually scans the horizon and freezes. In the distance, he spots Laura and Zane, stranded and waving from their rocky perch. His face fills with panic. He rushes to Derek and demands they detour to save his siblings. Derek is annoyed but relents, steering the yacht toward them. They pull up, and Jake helps Zane and Laura aboard. Just then, chaos erupts. The model in the water lets out a blood-curdling scream, the water beneath her churns. As the crew pulls her into the sky, her lower half is gone, bones visible, her torso twitching before she dies, as the piranhas have ate her bottom half. Back near the main shoreline, the sheriff department tries to shut down the spring break event, ordering the students to exit the water. But the college crowd, buzzing with alcohol and adrenaline, ignore their warnings and dozens of students leap into the lake, laughing and splashing. Suddenly, the lake explodes into blood. Dozens of piranhas swarm, biting, shredding, pulling people under. Screams fill the air, limbs fly, a massive panic erupts as bodies float to the surface, torn and lifeless. The sheriff's team tries to pull out as many survivors as possible, but the carnage is uncontrollable. By the end, the beach is littered with bleeding students, missing arms, chunks of flesh torn off, eyes wide in shock and pain. Meanwhile, Derek's yacht, already damaged, comes to a dead stop. The engine is snarled in weeds. Frustrated, Derek tries to gun it, but the boat hits underwater rocks. A lower glass window shatters, letting water pour inside. Derek and one of the models fall into the lake. Within seconds, the model is ripped apart by a dozen piranhas. Derek, screaming, tries to get on his yacht to safety, but his legs are shredded, and he barely makes it back on board before bleeding out and dying. Back at the marina, Julie's phone rings. It's Jake. Finally, he tells her the truth. He's not home, he's on Derek's sinking yacht in the middle of the lake with Zane and Laura. Without hesitation, Julie grabs Novak and they speed across the water in a boat, headed straight into danger, desperate to save her children. Soon, they spot the sinking yacht, partially grounded on a jagged rocky outcrop. Julie hurls a rope across the water. Jake catches it and quickly ties it to the mast of the half-submerged vessel. Julie, gripping the rope tightly, begins to pull herself hand over hand toward the yacht, her eyes never leaving her children. She climbs on board, and Jake rushes to her, telling her about Kelly, who's still trapped in the lower part of the yacht, unable to get out. Julie's face hardens with resolve. She orders everyone to grab onto the rope and make their way to safety across the water. She promises she'll go back for Kelly, but Jake refuses to leave her behind. Without hesitation, Julie gives Jake her radio, then one by one, the group begins crossing the rope line back to the sheriff's boat. Suddenly, Danny lets out a scream. Her long hair is snatched by a piranha leaping from the surface. She loses her balance, tumbles into the lake, and the swarm hits instantly and the water turns red. Shaken, but determined, The others, including Zane and Laura, push forward. Despite the trauma and blood, they make it safely onto the sheriff's boat. Jake, now alone on the yacht with Kelly still trapped, looks over at Derek's lifeless corpse lying on deck. Without a word, he grabs the body and throws it overboard, using it as bait. The distraction works, the swarm diverts, tearing into Derek's corpse, clearing a path. Jake dives into the water and finds Kelly. He then tells his mother to pull him out in the count of 10. Jake then quickly opens the yacht's gas valves. As the gas floods the water around them, Jake and Kelly burst to the surface, holding on tight to the rope. With his last bit of strength, Jake lights a flare, throws it back onto the sinking yacht, and they're yanked away just in time as the yacht explodes. A massive explosion rocks the lake, sending flames and debris flying as hundreds of piranhas are incinerated in the blast. On board, Jake and Kelly are pulled to safety. Julie wraps her arms around her son, barely holding back tears. Suddenly, radio crackles with a message from Mr. Goodman. He tells her that the piranha she brought him is not fully developed, which means those things out there are only the babies. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.